Hello folks, how you guys doing? My name is Mark, this is Why I Hate the World. Today we're only going to be doing one thing as opposed to our usual format where we cover 5 or 6 different topics. Today we're just going to be looking at Tucker Carlson's new show on Twitter because it is straight up Nazi shit. Before we get into that, let's take a look at what we're working on. So I cheated and worked on this while you guys weren't looking. Figure I'm going to try to go for sort of like a thorny forest kind of thing. So I've got like a bunch of weird bristles and stuff back here, and then there'll be plants and trees and blah blah blah. But I think today what we're going to do, because his face looks like crap, so we're going to go and erase this stupid daisy looking thing and try to make that look better. Yeah, Tucker Carlson. Let's go ahead and open up my laptop window. So for those of you who have not been keeping up with the news, he got 86th from Fox, which is ultimately a good thing for lots of different reasons. You know, they said it was related to the lawsuit with Dominion, blah blah blah, a bunch of other crap. It kind of looks like that with Rupert Murdoch, there might have been some personal animosity there. And apparently his wife was really into Tucker Carlson. And so, and then he also like recently divorced his wife through like via text message. Apparently, Rupert Murdoch like text messaged his wife and like told her that they were getting divorced. It's like, gee, thanks, Grandpa. Plus, this guy's like 90 years old, so it's like, okay, well, she married him for the money, obviously. So, but you can kind of see the kind of loving relationship they had. But apparently, it looks like Rupert Murdoch wanted Tucker Carlson to get fired because his ex-wife really liked him, and maybe he was jealous or something. I don't know. So there's all kinds of weird crap going on. It was probably a combination of all that, and then also there was some like sexual harassment stuff going on with Tucker Carlson, and that kind of thing. And also some like recordings in the background about him bad mouthing Trump and stuff like that. So all kinds of different reasons to get rid of his ass. But really, ultimately, who cares? I really honestly don't care that much about Tucker Carlson or why he got fired. What I do care about is the hate and bigotry that he uses his platform to spread, which looks like this is what's going on here tonight. So this is his first show on Twitter, which is only 10 minutes long. I don't know if there's a reason for that. I mean, didn't he used to go an hour? Maybe the Twitter format only allows you to upload a certain amount of time or something. I don't really know. I want to show you something here. Take a look at the stats on this. So, Tucker Carlson's show on Fox was getting between 3 to 5 million viewers a night. Somewhere in the area of 20 million a week, which is a lot. Take a look at this here. So, first stat you notice is this view counter, right? This is the how many times this tweet has been seen. It says 97 million. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Sounds like holy crap. 97 million people watched this, but that's a little misleading. That doesn't mean 97 million people watched this video. That means 97 million people saw this tweet. Well, if you haven't noticed, when you go on Twitter recently, all of Elon Musk's favorite right-wing assholes get sort of pushed into your Twitter feed, whether you like it or not. I have like a very remote Twitter use. I barely use it. I go on there mainly just to research videos. I don't tweet anything anymore because nothing I tweet gets to even the people who are sub to me, right? Because I don't want to like pay Elon Musk's stupid ass $8 fucking fee just so I can use the platform for what it was intended fucking usage was, right? So I barely tweet myself. But I notice that every time I go on there, who do I see in my top feed? I see Tucker Carlson, I see Tim Pool, I see DC fucking Drano, I see Cat Turd, I see Ben Shapiro, I see all of these right-wing assholes show up in my Twitter feed whether I like it or not. And so that's what's going on here, is that the Twitter algorithm has been tweaked to magnify these Nazi pieces of shit. These MAGA, the right-wing conservative assholes punditry people. Maybe because he's got this deal with Elon Musk or whatever, and with Twitter, then they're artificially pushing it to the top. Who knows, right? But something is going on with Twitter where it's magnifying all of these extreme right-wing people, right? And then I have to scroll down even to see the people that I am, because I'm not subbed to any of these people, right? But to see the people I am subbed to, I have to scroll down in my own feed, and then if I'm lucky, I might see one of them. So it's like, no. So what's really going on is that Twitter pushed it to everybody's damn feed, and they have 100 million users, something like that. And so there you go. There goes 100 million people saw this tweet. Now, does that mean 100 million people watched it? Maybe, probably not. Most likely not. Most people probably didn't, and you can kind of tell, how many likes does it have? 68,000. You can see right here, 68,000. This is how many likes. I hope it didn't, or this is how many replies, replies, or 68,000, right? This is how many likes. It has 755,000 likes. So 68,000 replies. Remember, not all of the replies are going to be positive, right? 22,000 retweets. Not all of the retweets are going to be positive. But this is how many people liked it. 755,000. So let's just look at these numbers, right? 97 million people saw the tweet. 800,000. Oh, I guess it's 98 million now. It just went up right now. 98 million people saw the tweet. About 755,000 people liked it. So let's assume that at least twice that many people watched it, right? And maybe didn't like it. Let's assume. We can assume that at least this many people watched it. No one's just going to like it without watching it, or maybe so. Maybe some of the people just liked it automatically because it's Tucker Carlson. The point I'm trying to make is that the viewership is way, way, way lower than what he was getting on Fox. That's the comparison. The comparison is that he's now in a space which is not getting him anywhere close to the amount of exposure he was getting before, which is ultimately a good thing, because that means that his dangerous, hateful, bigoted, asshole ideas will spread less. So ultimately, it's good. It's like, okay, well, now his ass is on Twitter, where literally a quarter of the people who were watching him every single night are going to see him. So deplatforming works. But let's see what he's got to say, because, here's the thing, right? That is a lot of people. That is a lot of likes. 800,000. Let's just round it up to 800,000. That's quite a lot of people, so it's not like he's completely gone. It's not like he's stuck off in the middle of some no-name website where nobody goes. No, that's a significant number of people. 800,000. Remember, this is worldwide. So, although his audience is primarily American, still worldwide, so it's like, kind of way, way, way diminished, I guess. I'm kind of happy to see that, because that's the thing, is it looks alarming, right? You look at the view count, 98 million, and then you think about it for half a second and go, oh, wait a minute, it's closer to 800,000. It's closer to a third or even a fifth of the number of people that he used to watch his ass. But I want to watch him here. Now, I'm going into this mainly blind. I've heard bad things about this. I have not seen any clips about this, whatever. Let's see what it's like. Let's see what his show is. I get the feeling that it's going to be somewhat unhinged because he doesn't have the Fox News people holding him back anymore. But let's see. Maybe he'll clean up his act here. Maybe he might actually say something good. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe.
I guess jumping right into it, huh? I mean, you would think that he'd give some kind of intro or something. You know, hey, I'm Tucker Carlson, this is my show, but nope, jumping right into the events there. This damn thing just happened like the other day. So I'm betting that he's probably going to blame this on Ukraine. That's my guess, because Tucker Carlson is somewhat notorious for being a Putin sort of dick sucker, right? He's sniffing Putin's panties and licking his boots. You know, he was doing that on a daily fucking basis on his previous show. So let's see how he spins this here.
In danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military.
By the way, the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe that he mentioned was already in danger of melting down. It's been in danger of melting down ever since the war started. Several times since the war started, like there, and then it also at Chernobyl, which is also in the Ukraine. They've had to take emergency measures such as turning on emergency generators and stuff like that to keep an actual meltdown from happening. That's a thing that's happened multiple times. And I doubt if we were to go on to Tucker Carlson's show on Fox, somehow I doubt he talked very much about that. I really, really doubt it. I bet that he's just bringing that up now because it benefits him politically. Just an assumption. I could be wrong. Let's continue.
Tactic. It was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government.
Let's rewind that a second. He said that's an act of terrorism? What did he just say there? I was talking. Let's see what he says.
Act of terrorism.
Hang on.
The largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic. It was an act of terrorism.
Why would you say that? Why would this not be a military tactic? Causing havoc in an area that's controlled by your enemy. That's kind of a legit tactic. It is. It's the same reason why, for example, in World War II, right? Here's a good example about how that's a legit tactic. In World War II, the Japanese never actually attacked the American mainland, but what they did is that they had bombs on balloons, right? They sent these bombs over that went up into the Gulf Stream, came down in forests on the American West Coast, in California and Oregon and Washington, and caused forest fires. Now, you would go, okay, well, you have no way of knowing where these bombs are going to come down. Like, they just released them up there just knowing that they'll come down somewhere in the United States, right? Somewhere in this part of the world. But they don't know. They had no way of knowing if they were going to land on a military target or anything like that. So why would you do it? Would you consider that terrorism? I mean, it kind of sounds like it would be terrorism because it's just there to cause terror, to cause chaos, right? But no, it's a military tactic. It's a legit military tactic, right? Because what that does is that it takes manpower away from the military. So you have to spend money, resources, and manpower to go out and fight fires. That's the whole point. That's the whole reason why, for example, in World War II, they would bomb cities just wholesale. And this was a thing that the Germans did and the Allies did too. The Allies did the exact same thing. They would just bomb German cities, bomb Japanese cities. I mean, that's why they're the nuclear strikes on Hiroshima. So no, that's a legit tactic. So if you're saying that this bridge was destroyed purely to cause terror in the local populace, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. Continuing.
The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that...
All right. So that was a lie. So you see how he called it Russian, but without actually saying, right? You see, it benefits Russia. This was controlled by Russia. It's a Russian dam. It's in Crimea, is it not? So it's in Ukraine. It's in Russian occupied Ukraine. So it wasn't a Russian dam, it was a Ukrainian dam. It's all in the way you frame things, folks, right? You see how Tucker Carlson is really good at this, by the way? Really good at framing things in such a way that he can sort of weasel a meaning without actually straight out saying it. Like he's really good at that. Whoever does this writing for him, who is sort of a neo-Nazi, right, or whoever it is really good at just sort of misdirection and putting in weasel words and allusions to things and stuff like that, and dog whistles, where you use sort of coded language. Like the right wing in general is really good at using dog whistles. But Tucker Carlson in general is sort of a master at it, right? So he's basically right now convincing people that a Ukrainian dam that was destroyed during a war was a terrorist action, which he's about to blame on the Ukraine right now. Right? He's about to do it. He's framing it saying that this was a dam, a Russian dam, even though it was in Ukraine. Right? It was in Ukraine and it was destroyed during a war between Ukraine and Russia. Somehow Russians are the victims here. Right? Even though the water that's getting spilled out of it destroyed like a Ukrainian town, somehow the Russians are the victims. How does that shit work? He's a master. Like I said, he's a master at this particular form of lying, because that's what this is. It's a lie. At this particular form of lying, Tucker Carlson excels. Continuing.
That reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate as a test strike. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes more...
All right. I know a little bit more about that. I actually know what that story is. There was a certain type of rocket that Ukrainians got from the Americans, basically, right? And they shot it at this dam. They shot it at one of the flood control things to test it out because it's a big steel door. And they wanted to see, like, okay, what kind of damage can this do? So that's what that story was. So that is misleading. What he just said there? Like, because if you didn't know, you would think that, oh, well, that was, they tried to blow it up. Because what it's making it sound like, oh, the Ukrainians tried to blow this up before. And now they did it. That's what that sounds like, right? But he completely mischaracterized what that story was. It's like one lie after another with this motherfucker. Seriously, folks. Continuing.
much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up, just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know.
What? Wait. Did the Ukrainians blew up Nord Stream? All right, we have to actually Google that. Hang on a second. Did Ukraine blow up Nord Stream? 1 day ago, U.S. had intelligence of Ukrainian plan to attack Nord Stream project. Okay. Months before they attacked. All right. Intelligence suggests pro-Ukrainian groups sabotaged. A little different. Well, here's the thing, folks, right? These are legitimate military targets. I mean, if you think about it, like, why would, first off, Ukraine, the government of Ukraine, why would they want to blow up this dam, which is, he is correct when he says it is in Russian-controlled territory. He's incorrect when it comes to categorizing it as a Ukrainian or as a Russian dam or whatever. That's not true. But why would it be in the best interest of the Ukraine to blow up this dam? Well, because now the Russians have to spend money in the territory that they hold doing damage control. That means it takes money and resources away from the troops. So that is a legit tactic, right? The Nord Stream pipeline, if that's even true, because here's the thing, right, folks? Just because you have intelligence of a plot to do something doesn't mean that intelligence is correct. That all that really means, if it's true, is that there was some chatter that, oh, there may be a plan for this to happen, right? The war was already going when the Nord Stream pipeline blew up. It is highly unlikely that, and remember, all of Europe right now is supporting the Ukraine. They're supplying them with troops and tanks and money and soldiers. And when I say soldiers, it's like volunteers and stuff are going over to the Ukraine from multiple countries, not just the United States. There are Americans fighting in this war, if you didn't know that. They're like mercenaries, right? From all over the world, but mainly Europe, because Europe, it is in their best interest to stop an expansionist Russia, right? But why would the Nord Stream pipeline be a legit military tactic? Because it deprives Russia of money. It's a legit tactic. And I suspect it wouldn't have happened. If that was the case, if it was actually blown up by the Ukrainians, then I suspect it wouldn't have happened without sign off of the United States. I mean, I somehow doubt that they would do something, and Europe, to be honest. I somehow doubt that they would cut off a main energy supply to all of Europe without sign off from those countries if they wanted those countries to support them during the war. I mean, think about it for half a second, okay? Like, you gotta, when it comes to stuff like this, you have to put your thinking cap on. You can't just assume anything, and you can't assume the first thing you think is correct, right? You gotta think about it like, well, how does it benefit country X versus country Y? Because you will never know the truth. That's the thing. Just because there's a report of this or that, or even because somebody said there was a report of this, that doesn't mean that's the actual truth. That doesn't mean that actually happened. It doesn't mean that the intelligence they have is accurate. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means, oh, somebody said this, right? We will probably never know what exactly happened with the Nord Stream pipeline until the war is over, at least. Then maybe, it might come out in like some kind of declassified information or something like that. Don't get me wrong, it's shitty if you're against war, if you're anti-war, stuff like that. Shouldn't have happened, but when it comes to war, all bets are off. Your allies are your allies only so much as they're your allies. Completely plausible to me that they would blow it up, and it's legit that they would blow it up. And I highly doubt that they would blow it up without their allies knowing about it if they wanted to keep those allies as allies. Makes perfect logical sense to me. So, Tucker Carlson, of course, is trying to spin this around like it's some kind of big-ass, huge betrayal to everybody. It's not a fucking betrayal. It was, if it happened that way, it was part of the plan. Now, you gotta remember there's also reasons Russia could have wanted to blow that up, too. I mean, because you would think, like, well, why? Because it deprives Europe of energy, which means that they can charge more for the oil that they do export. That's the other thing you got to think about, right? That means they could ultimately make more money. See, it's not as cut and dry, folks. You can't just, when it comes to this clandestine, like, spy cloak and dagger shit, it's never what you think the first explanation is. So when Tucker Carlson says he's got it all figured out, don't believe his ass, because he doesn't. He's going off the same information that you and I have. Basically talking out of his asshole and spinning it in such a way that it makes Ukraine look like the villains. Let's continue.
It's not like Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you.
Please remember that Vladimir Putin actually started the war. He's the one that started the war. Ukraine did not start the war at all. Russia is the one that invaded Ukraine. So when they sit here and they say Ukraine is the villains, that they're the warmongers, blah, 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 who started the fucking war again? It wasn't the Ukraine. It was Vladimir Putin, who has been trying for literally decades to basically take over the Ukraine. So, for years and years and years, I mean, they invaded Crimea, basically just fucking annexed that shit. 2014, they've been funding separatists and like Nazi groups and shit, right, for decades in the Ukraine, trying to destabilize it, all this other crap. So when he's sitting here, he's going to sit here and try to claim that, oh, Putin doesn't want to start a war himself. Putin started the goddamn war. He started the fucking war years and years ago. He invaded. He's the reason why all this shit happened. Let's not forget that. Let's not let these fucking ball lickers change history. That's what Tucker Carlson is. Fucking ball licker. Look at him. He licks balls. Continuing.
We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning in accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure. Bill Kristol, the man who once told us that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11, immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal and even more savagely compared him to Donald Trump.
Bill Kristol is a neocon, isn't he? Isn't he like a big-time neocon? American neoconservative writer, frequent commentator on several networks, including CNN, Fox. So yeah, that was conservative. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Bill Kristol's like a neoconservative, right? So that's the first thing. I mean, yes, what he just said is true, but the conservative establishment also tried to pin 9/11 on Saddam Hussein. Let's not forget that. And I bet you $1 million if I were to go back in time and watch all of Tucker Carlson's shows from around the Iraq War era, I bet you $1 million will find plenty of allusions to Saddam Hussein being responsible for 9/11. Because what is he making it sound like? He's making it sound like, oh, here's this deep state guy, Bill Kristol, deep state, one of the warmongers who lied to you and said that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11. I bet you $1 million I can find Tucker Carlson saying that exact same fucking thing, right? I know for a fact there were literally dozens upon dozens of guests who were on Fox News around that time who said the exact same damn thing as that and tried to pin 9/11 on Saddam Hussein. I know some of you kids out there were a little young to remember 9/11 and the Gulf War, so you may not have been around for all the lies that these assholes spewed. Suffice to say, people just like Tucker Carlson, people in Tucker Carlson's orbit, on Fox, specifically on Fox News, were the ones that made that war happen. It was a thing where, you were talking about Saddam Hussein and all that, 9/11, it was synonymous. Synonymous. They might as well have blamed it on him if they didn't straight out say it. They alluded to it 1 million times. Saddam Hussein is sheltering terrorists. The same kind of terrorists who caused 9/11. That's why we need to go in there and bomb them, even though Iraq totally was not responsible for 9/11, and everybody could have told you that. Nobody beat that goddamn drum war, like the drum for that war, louder than Tucker Carlson and his friends on his network, right? Although at that time, to be fair, Tucker Carlson was on CNN. Wasn't he? I think he was in 2001. He was on Crossfire, right? Uh, when was Crossfire? Crossfire was, yeah, ended in 2005. And then after Crossfire died, he went off to Fox. The reason Crossfire died, by the way, was because of the Daily Show Jon Stewart guy went on there, and it was Tucker Carlson and one other fucking like no name fucking dude. The other guy like went on to, I can't read, some other pundit guy who was like the liberal dude on Crossfire, and Tucker and what it was is Jon Stewart went on there and just completely fucking humiliated them. Like it's on YouTube. Go check it out. Check out Jon Stewart on Crossfire. It's just the dressing down and ass drumming that he gives these guys is beyond. It was so bad that their show got canceled. That's how bad Jon Stewart humiliated Tucker Carlson on Crossfire, right? Tucker Carlson then goes to Fox in 2005. That was during the height of the Iraq War and the Afghanistan conflict, the Afghanistan War. Nobody beat those damn drums more for those wars than the people on his network, than the guests on his show. So he's trying to now, hindsight is 2020. Yeah, right. It's 17 years later, and now he gets to try to pretend that I was against it all along. It's like, get the fuck out of my face with that shit. This guy lies so far. All right, we're only like 2 minutes into this. How far are we into it? We're like 2 minutes. Let's continue on, because I could sit here and talk shit about Tucker Carlson and the Iraq War all fucking night. Let's see what else he has to say.
The rest of the pundit class made similar, clearly coordinated noises. Putin did it! Putin did it! And their reasoning was simple. Putin is evil, and evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil. In this specific case, Putin attacked himself, which is the most evil thing you can do, and therefore perfectly in character for a man that evil.
Putin is evil. I think we should acknowledge that. He actually is. Putin is evil. Putin has journalists killed. If you're a journalist and you say something wrong, saying something bad about Putin that he doesn't like, he will murder you. He has political dissidents like executed. He has his people that try to run against him. Like every once in a while, Russia will have an election just so that they can try to pretend that they're a democracy and all that. He'll have people straight up like jailed. We always talk shit about, like, now ever since Trump was president, they're always talking about lock her up and all that shit, right? Blah 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 blah. But it hasn't actually happened yet, right? Like Putin actually does that. Putin jails people if you're stupid enough to actually like try to use democracy in Russia. You can be thrown in jail. Right. Here's something I want to show you guys. I want to show you guys something, all right? Let's see if I can find the picture of this. This is from Radio Free Europe. Let's move this down over here, right? I want to show you guys this. This is an election in Russia. 3 Boris Vyshenskys. And here's the thing. So this guy, Boris, whatever, I think it's him. This dude here on the right was actually the guy running against Putin back a few years ago. What happens? When the ballot shows up, suddenly 2 other guys with the exact same name who look very similar to the guy who's actually running show up on the ballot. Look at that. See the name? It's in Cyrillic. The exact same name. 3 men appear on the city's election post, right? See, 3 men running for seats on St. Petersburg Municipal Legislature, right? So how does that work? How did the exact same guy show up 3 times on the ballot? Why is that there? It's because the ruling party, Putin's party, is getting 2 fake dudes to show up so that when people go to vote, they don't know who the real one is. Right. And so then they end up voting for the wrong people. It splits the vote, and then the guy that Putin wants to win is the one that wins. Right. This is the kind of shit that happens in Russia. Okay. If you're unlucky enough to run against Putin, if you don't get thrown in jail, straight out thrown in jail or exiled or whatever, then shit like this happens and you end up losing. Let's go ahead and oh, wait a minute. Let's just turn that off. We don't really need that. We can go back to the Tucker Carlson, his giant, stupid, goofy-ass looking face. That's what happens in Russia. And then, if you're really unlucky and you get exiled, maybe Russia, maybe Putin tries to assassinate you with like a fucking polonium bullet or whatever, right? Did you know that the previous president of Ukraine, there was an assassination attempt on his life? Not on Zelensky. Oh, apparently Zelensky has survived 3 assassination attempts so far. 4th assassination attempt. Okay, so it looks like there's been 4 assassination attempts. Oh, apparently Putin himself has survived 6 assassination attempts. I guess that shit just happens. Here we go, Viktor Yushchenko. That's the guy who was poisoned, right? So it's a previous. Now I want to show you this picture here. We can show you this because this is not too disgusting. This is the previous president of the Ukraine. See his face here? See, this is what he used to look like. And then now that's what he looks like now, right? It's because Putin poisoned this guy in 14 years ago. So what's 14 years ago? 2009? Poisoned this guy, tried to kill him, right? He used some kind of it was like polonium or some shit, some kind of like radioactive pill that was like fed into him or whatever. And that's what it did to his skin. Look at this dude's face. Okay? I mean, this is the kind of shit Putin does. Putin fucking straight up murders people. This is probably the best picture so far. So yeah, if you're going to call somebody evil, I think Putin fits the fucking bill for someone who's evil. Invading other countries, murdering his political opposition. All right, let's turn this shit off for now. Hang on. Where's my mouse at? There it is. We got to go back to OBS Studio. We got to get rid of this thing. Murdering his political opposition, killing journalists who just people. I mean, imagine that. We take that for granted here in the States because we have the First Amendment, which the First Amendment protects journalists. Everybody's First Amendment, freedom of speech. Included in freedom of speech is the freedom of the press. You're not allowed to jail somebody because they say if you're like the president and a journalist writes a story on you don't like. You're not allowed to just throw them in jail. You're not allowed to just kill them. Not so in Russia. In Russia, you don't have those protections, right? It's very like, no, this is an autocratic fucking dictator who just straight up murders people that he doesn't agree with. I mean, if that ain't evil, then what the hell actually is evil? Let's continue.
Explanation. No one who's paid to cover these things seemed to entertain even the possibility it could have been Ukrainians who did it. No chance of that. Ukraine, as you may have heard, is led by a man called Zelensky. And we can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression.
Once again, not terrorism. Not terrorism. Either of those things. Not terrorism. Legitimate military targets. Right? Continuing.
He is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch, a persecutor of Christians, a friend of BlackRock. But don't believe your own eyes.
What the fuck is that? Sweaty and rat-like. Did he really just fucking say that? Let's rewind that. Hang on a second. Sweaty and rat-like?
And it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch, a persecutor of Christians,
Jesus
a friend
Christ.
of BlackRock.
What the fuck? That is... That's anti-Semitic, like, Nazi shit. Sweaty and rat-like? I mean... Zelensky is Jewish, right? This is fucking... This is, wow, sweaty and persecutor of Christians. Where the fuck did that come from? Persecutor of Christians? What? Like, is that happening in the Ukraine? Is Zelensky putting Christians on train cars and like shipping them off to a fucking, death factory or whatever, making them break rocks? It's slave labor, and then like gassing them to death or something? Is that happening? Like, no. The fuck are you talking about? Like, this is Nazi shit. This is straight up fascist fucking Jewish question Nazi shit right here. Carlson always was a Nazi, but he would hide it better than this. Sweaty and rat-like. Wow. What is friend of BlackRock? I think BlackRock is a mercenary outfit. Let me see, BlackRock. Investment Management Financial Services. Okay, well, I don't really know what the BlackRock thing is about. I thought he was referring to a mercenary group. But I'm not going to worry about that now. For now, that's probably just another dog whistle for Jewish cabal there. If he's talking about BlackRock, like that, if I had to guess, I don't really know what's behind this, and I'm not going to look it up now. If I had to guess, I think this is just another sort of anti-Semitic smear against, the sweaty and rat-like thing definitely was a goddamn anti-Semitic smear. That's a straight up fucking Nazi shit right there. It's like, I knew that, I knew Tucker Carlson was going to be more unhinged. I knew that he was going to be a little more open with the fucking Nazi shit. But I didn't know that he was going to be this open. I know that his writer is like a fucking 4chan troll. He's one of those guys that goes on poll and like talks about like black people's head sizes and shit, and like the shape of skulls for non-white people. Like that's the kind of guy that like his head writer is. So maybe they're feeling a little less confined. Maybe they're going, hey, we're not on Fox where we have to actually like put some like code, put this shit in code or whatever. We're on Elon Musk's fucking right-wing, super duper right-wing Twitter network now, so we can say all the Nazi shit we want. It's like, I don't know. I'm surprised that he's actually going there with this. I guess he's just not hiding it anymore, right? I guess it's not the term that they have for that. By the way, that Nazis and shit have for this is it's called hiding your power level. I'm not even joking. That's the term. From fucking Dragon Ball Z, right? Which kind of goes to show you how ridiculous these fucking people are. That they're all just nerds. They're all just nerds who never got laid and have sort of like, instead of realizing that they're just a bunch of fucking nerds and they should be cool with people, that they've decided to like blame like black people and Jewish people for the fact they can't get laid. That's all the right wing is in this country. It's all the Nazis are in this country. Just a bunch of sexually repressed, stuck-up nerds. That's why they hate women. That's why they hate they hate women. They hate gay people because gay people actually get some, and they know it, and they know that like they'll never be as cool as the gay people, and that's why they hate black people. They hate black people because they think the black people are stealing all the white women. Right? It all comes to the fact that these guys never can't get laid because they're a bunch of socially awkward douchebags who spent their childhoods fucking playing Roblox and World of Warcraft and shit, and never learned how to talk to a goddamn girl. That's what it's all about. And instead of looking in the mirror and realizing, hey, I'm a loser, maybe I should stop being such a fucking loser and quit blaming other people for my fucking problems. Instead of doing that, they decided to just double down on the shit. No, it's everybody else's problem. It's the Western world's problem for being corrupt. It's the damn Jews. That's the reason why I can't get a girlfriend. I'm not making that shit up. I wish I was. Continuing on.
But don't believe your own eyes. Actually, Mr. Zelensky is a very good man. The best, really. As George W. Bush once noted, he is our generation's Winston Churchill. Of all the people in the world, our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend in the tracksuit is uniquely incapable of blowing up a dam.
Shifty dead-eyed dress. First off, Tucker Carlson was a major Bush supporter. So don't listen to that lie. You know how he just said George W. Bush's name with disgust? Right there? Like, oh, you should hate Bush because he blah, 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 right? He was the biggest fucking Bush supporter you ever saw in your life back then. So don't believe any of that shit. Secondly, dead-eyed tracksuit. That's, man. It's like I guess it's kind of refreshing. It's kind of refreshing that he's not trying to hide it anymore. You know, like we don't have to decode his words anymore. We don't have to pull out the Nazi decoder ring and be like, huh, is Tucker Carlson really mean it, or is he just dog whistling? It's like, no, we can see he's just exposing himself to everybody to who he actually really is. Like, so I guess if you ever had, you know, all of your conservative uncle that you only see on at Christmas and Thanksgiving or whatever, who listens to this fucking guy, like, be happy that Carlson is not on his network anymore. Now your uncle's not going to be poisoned by this shit. Unless he actually followed him to Twitter, which it looks like not, you know, it looks like only a quarter of his audience actually did. Fucking ridiculous. Wow, this is some crazy shit. Continuing.
He's literally a living saint, a man in whom there is no sin. That's why Lindsey Graham is so attracted to him. They're just two good people, hanging out together and being good. And like all good people, when they meet in person, they spend a lot of time talking about killing people and laughing like friends do. Here's the parallel.
Okay.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free,
Yes.
and we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
No, it's
The Russians are dying.
Based. Good. The Russians should be dying. The Russians are the aggressors in this war, by the way. They are the ones who started the war, right? They are. Putin started the war, right? And, you know, here's the thing. The Russians know this as well. That's why so many of them are trying to escape the war. I don't know if you've seen these stories about this, about Russian men fleeing the country and things like that, so that they don't have to get caught up in Putin's war. Yeah, the Russian populace is well aware that they are the aggressors. It's a hugely unpopular war. If it wasn't unpopular, then they wouldn't have thousands and thousands, if not millions, of men fleeing the country, trying to escape getting drafted or whatever. They wouldn't have to be going into prisons and shit and drafting people, which is what they're doing. And it's because they're barely hanging on. Here's the thing. It's because they got their asses kicked so hard. They're barely fucking hanging on. They're using equipment that's all fucked up and rusty. Right? And they're basically know that it's a matter of time until they have to retreat humiliated. And they're kind of just sort of keeping it going, hoping for a miracle. That's what's kind of going on right now with the war. At least from the Russian side. I mean, am I wrong? I don't know. Last time I checked, that's what was happening. I could be wrong. Maybe the Russians are winning. I don't think they are. The Russians should be dying. I mean, I'm sorry, right? That sounds like a terrible thing to say. But this is a war. This is what happens when a war happens. People get killed. Entire families get wiped out. But I think in this case, there's no reason to remain neutral. In this particular war, there's a clear aggressor. That aggressor is Vladimir Putin. He's the one that started this shit. He's the one that has been perpetuating the violence over there for more than a decade. And I hope Russia loses. I hope Russia loses so hard that they depose Putin and he either gets exiled or jailed or something worse happens to him. Sorry. I'm not the kind of person who cries when dictators get what's coming to them. No, not at all. When Saddam Hussein finally got executed, I didn't shed one tear because fuck Saddam Hussein. When Gaddafi was killed in the most undignified way, I didn't shed one tear at all. Good. I'm glad that happened. I'm glad. You know why? Because those people were murderers. They were murderers. They actually, especially Gaddafi. I mean, Saddam Hussein gassed his own people. He did. I mean, yeah, okay, the war, the Iraq war was wrong. We shouldn't have invaded. We should not have. And I'll stand against that until the day I die. The Iraq war was unjust. 2002, when that shit happens, I was out there protesting against that. Right? I mean, yeah, I know. He was a piece of shit, and I'm not sad that he's dead, but that war was wrong. That being said, Saddam Hussein got what he deserved. Omar Gaddafi, Gaddafi got what he deserved. They did. And I'm not shedding a goddamn tear for any of them. Right? At any given time, those guys could have given up power. They could have made things right. They didn't do that. They ran those countries like they were their personal piggy banks. That's the whole reason why, the only reason to be a dictator, by the way, is to money and power, and most especially money. Putin is probably one of the richest men on earth right now. He could be the richest man on earth, and we don't know. All his wealth is being hidden. We wouldn't know, because we have no way of knowing how much wealth Putin actually has. Right? How long has he been president now? Since when? When did Putin become president? Let me see. President. I mean, he's been president for like 15 years or some shit, right? Prime Minister 1999 to 2000, 2008 to 2012. President from 2000 to 2008 and since 2012. So he was president for 8 years, and then there's a 4-year gap when he was prime minister. And then he went back to being president. So basically, since 1999, Putin has been in power in Russia. Can you imagine that? Imagine that's like the majority of my adult life, 1999 until now. This guy's been president of Russia like the majority of my adult life. There are people who have been born who have never known anything else except, and there are people who will probably die, who've been born and will die and will never know anything else except Putin's rule in that country. Can you imagine that shit? Can you imagine the same person being in charge for literal decades like that, and their every fucking word is like law? That's what's actually happening there, folks. This is why it's so important. The freedoms we have in this country are so damn important, because if you look and see what it's like in those countries where you don't have these types of freedoms, and compare what's going on here to what's going on there, right? And now it's really scary because all the conservatives in our country, in the United States, are sitting here sucking this guy off, licking his balls, like Tucker Carlson is, because that's what they want in the United States. They want their own little dictator to run this country, because then it benefits them. That's why these guys are sucking up to fucking Putin so much. That's why Viktor Orban is being invited to CPAC and shit like that. Right? That's what that's exactly what the designs are, what they have here. Let's continue on. This isn't over yet. We're only 4 minutes in, and I actually do want to kind of get through all this, so let's continue.
It's the best money we've ever spent, Graham says. A smile spreads across his thin, quivering lips as he forms the words. He looks like a starving man contemplating a breakfast buffet. The aroma of death has aroused Lindsey Graham. Thanks so much, replies Zelensky. He feels the same way.
All right, well,
there's nothing dark here. Just too.
That actually was funny, yeah, because fuck Lindsey Graham, so I'm not going to defend Lindsey Graham at all. He's a scumbag. Tucker Carlson can insult Lindsey Graham all he wants. I just think this shit's funny because Lindsey Graham is ideologically aligned with Tucker Carlson. So I don't really get what this game is that Carlson's trying to play here. Is he trying to pretend that he's not one of these people? That he's also not an oligarch? Tucker Carlson is a fucking oligarch, if you guys didn't know that. His dad married his third wife, who was the Swanson heiress. Yeah, he became rich at age 10 when Carlson's dad married into the Swanson Frozen Food Company, the woman who owns that. So yeah, just, remember when Tucker Carlson tries to claim that he's not an oligarch, he's totally a fucking oligarch. he's like, he could, he became rich at age 10. Super rich at age 10 from the labor of other people by his father marrying into another rich ass family. So I like when he sits there, yeah, Zelensky's an oligarch. It's like calling the pot calling the kettle black. Right, continuing.
Two middle-aged guys celebrating the killing of a population. They don't seem like the kind of people who'd enjoy flooding villages or starting a famine. And in any case, who cares if they are?
That's very interesting. Starting a famine, because the results of this war have driven up food prices all over the world, and in particular Africa, because lots of the exports from Ukraine can't get out. A lot of the exports of like grain and food and shit that's grown in the Ukraine goes to Africa. And now since this war started, the ports there are all blocked and everything. Putin won't allow any exports to go from the Ukraine. So food prices have spiked all over Europe, and in particular Africa, which has led to hunger. So you're talking about starting a fucking famine. The person you should be blaming there, the person you should be looking at for starting the famines, is fucking Vladimir Putin. Because his fucking war started this shit, and he's the one who's not allowing any exports to go out there. So I like how he just totally blamed Zelensky. Like, how the fuck is it Zelensky's fault if the occupying army that invaded his country does not allow exports to go out? Like, he's basically blaming Zelensky for fighting to free his country. Like, what do you want him to do? Surrender? Is that what it is? Just surrender. Fuck it. Just give your country away. Just allow this madman to roll in and take your territory, murder your citizens, destroy their fucking cities, raze your cities to the ground, and steal your children. That's another thing that happened, by the way, when the war started. You guys remember that story? Where it was like thousands of Ukrainian children were like shipped off to Russia to go to like Russian orphanages and shit like that? I'm not making that up. If that isn't, that's genocide right there. That's exactly what genocide is. When you're trying to systemically displace or eliminate a population through multiple methods, including bombing them and carting their children off to be raised by strangers. That is also a genocidal act. So I don't want to hear any of this bullshit at all. I think we're going to cover most of that cloud, but fuck it. Maybe I might leave him bald. Maybe we won't make this a flower-headed guy anymore. I feel like we should put something around the dude's head, though, because it's just too boring like that. You know, maybe I'll put spikes instead of flower petals. That'll look a little less stupid. Continuing on.
It's really not your business. Your job is to support Ukraine. Watch Nikki Haley, a Republican candidate for president, explain this principle on CNN.
A win for Ukraine is a win for all of us. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through. We have to finish it.
Yep.
See?
Based.
It's very easy to understand.
Absolutely true. 100% absolutely true. This may be hard for people to understand, especially on the left, where lots of us like to be, pacifists and stuff. We like to be anti-war. Well, there's being anti-war, and then there's being anti-justice. Not every war is unjust. Right. Now, this war is unjust. Because the Russians invaded. That's the unjust part. But the Ukrainians defending themselves, there's nothing unjust about defending yourself. No, that is the only time when war is actually just, when it's in self-defense. When you are attacked and you fight back, that's not unjust. That's what it's supposed to be. That's when you're supposed to fight back. That's when it's justified. I mean, think about it. When you're on the street by yourself. Are you allowed to, like, some guy comes up to you and pisses you off? Are you allowed to just beat the crap out of him? No. But if he swings at you first, then all bets are off. It's self-defense. Self-defense is justified in personal altercations and also in a war. That's what this is. That's what this is. It's no different than somebody bullying someone on the street. A guy punching a bully in the face. Just doing it on a larger national scale. Someone who's been fucking with them for, the Russians basically, if you want to use this analogy of two people on the street, it's like the Russians have been fucking with the Ukrainians for decades now. Decades. Funding separatist movements, assassinating their leaders, trying to assassinate their leaders. All of these other ridiculous fucking things. Invading and stealing their territory. Just basically annexing Ukraine. Imagine if Canada came down and said, we're just going to take Montana and North Dakota. We're just taking those. Those are ours. Those belong, and Michigan. Those belong to us now. We're just going to annex those, the end. Would you allow that to happen? Right? Imagine Mexico invades New Mexico and just takes it. Goes, this used to belong to us a long time ago. It was part of Mexico for like years and years and years. We're just going to take that. And if you try anything, if you try any shit, then it'll be a war. No, that's the act of war. Invading and stealing someone's territory, kicking out their populace, blowing up their city, shit like that's the act of fucking war. Not defending yourself afterwards. Just got to make that shit clear. Because the right wing in this country has really tried hard to twist this Ukraine shit around into thinking that we're all supporting the wrong side. Officially that, Biden's sending him all this money. He doesn't care what's going on in this country. Why is he sending him all this money? Blah, 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 blah. No, we should be sending them all the money. We should not be getting personally involved by sending troops there. And we should be mindful about escalation. But we should be sending them money. We should be sending them planes and tanks. And laser-guided tow missiles. And all this other shit. Because the Russians are the ones who started this. And they need to be defeated. There's nothing that goes against any leftist principle by supporting the people who have been invaded. I mean, if anything, that sounds like something that's like completely agrees with leftist principles to me. Isn't that part of fighting the oppressors? Liberating oppressed peoples? I mean, depends on how hardcore of a leftist you are. But that sounds like something that we should all be agreeing on, that the liberating oppressed peoples is a leftist value that I think we should all be able to agree upon, wouldn't you say? We can disagree on the method, I guess. For those of you out there who are like, no war no matter what, well, do you think peaceful demonstration is going to, do you think peaceful demonstration and nonviolence in a situation where one country invades another is going to actually do anything? Do you think that's the right response to tanks rolling over the border and just annexing your country and stealing your children away and trying to assassinate your president? You think that's the right way to go? Just show up? I guess if we all just went there to the Ukraine with a bunch of signs and shit and just like stood around and protested and said, Putin, Russians go home, that they'll like they'll just capitulate, give up, and leave. Is that what you guys think? No. Don't be ridiculous, folks. And I know people don't like this. People don't like this because, oh, wow, have I been on the wrong layer this whole time? Holy crap, I hope not. I hope I have not been on the wrong layer this whole time. Please don't tell me. Okay, good. Thank you. Anyway, let's continue on. We're only about halfway through.
It is vitally important for you to support Ukraine because it's necessary for Ukraine to be supported by you. Your support is mandatory until it's finished, whatever it is, and whatever that means. So shut up and support Ukraine, or...
That's a rhetorical trick, by the way, that he says that all the time. You notice right there, he just said, whatever it is. Until it's finished, whatever it is. Right? You notice how he always does that rhetorical trick. It leaves it up. Basically, it makes the viewer think like the people in charge don't know what they're talking about or don't know what they're doing or that there's no plan, right? Or any of that. It's like, well, what's even going on here? I don't know. Whatever it means, until it's done, just do what we say. Whatever it is, what it is the war. That's what it is. And yes, we should support Ukrainians until the war is over. That's what actually it in this context actually means. Just so that we're not splitting hairs here, so that we're not pretending that we mean something else. Because Tucker Carlson and his Nazi cohorts are very, very good about muddying the waters there and trying to get that confusion in there. That's exactly what he's trying to do here. He's trying to basically confuse the viewers at home as to who the actual aggressor is in this war and why we should be supporting our ally over our enemy. That's what he's actually trying to do here, folks, right? And let's just be clear about it. Yeah, it is a war. And we should support our ally until the war is over with. Continuing.
or else you're in trouble. Back when they still taught logic, statements like this were known as tautologies. Something is true because it is. The more you repeat it, the truer it becomes. It's a self-reinforcing reality. There was a time when tautologies were considered illegitimate arguments, not to mention hilariously stupid. Only dumb people talk like that. Now,
tautology. The saying of the same thing twice in different words, generally considered to be the fault of style. I.g., they arrived one after the other in succession. So, did he just give the wrong definition for a tautology? Is there a multiple? Let's see. Are there multiple definitions to the word tautology? Nope. Logic statement that is true by necessity or virtue of its logical form. All logical propositions are reducible to either tautologies or contradictions. So, kind of sounds like he gave the wrong definition. Let's listen to his definition one more time of tautology there.
it is, and whatever that means. So shut up and support Ukraine, or else you're in trouble. Back when they still taught logic, statements like this were known as tautologies. Something is true because it is. The more you repeat it, the truer it becomes.
A statement that is true by necessity or by virtue of its logical form. Right, because he said it's true because it is?
It's like this were known as tautologies. Something is true because it is.
Something is true because it is. That doesn't exactly... No. A tautology is it's true by the necessity of the virtue of its logical form. That doesn't mean it's true because it is. That means it's true because it logically makes sense. So, no. I'm not giving it to Carlson. Carlson gave the wrong definition there. I guess his writer didn't bother to do his research. It's just funny, does that mean anything? No. That doesn't mean anything. right? It especially doesn't mean anything because he knows that the people, his supporters who watch this, aren't going to go look up the definition of tautology. I just think the shit's funny because the guy literally can't say anything without lying to people. Without lying to people, without twisting the truth in order to fit his agenda. He can't even give the definition of a word without trying to twist it around into something that it doesn't mean. I just think that it's just so on brand, I guess is what it is for Tucker Carlson to just lie so so easily. You know, it's like him and Ben Shapiro can just. I think he's actually better at it than Ben Shapiro. They could just lie straight to your face without any kind of problem whatsoever. Without any kind of just compunction, without any like tells. Like they're just such expert fucking liars.
The more you repeat it, the truer it becomes. It's a self-reinforcing reality. There was a time when tautologies were considered...
That's the definition that he just gave there is an axiom, by the way, not a tautology. An axiom is a statement that you think to be true, even though it's like you hold it to be true, even though there's no actual like logical truth to it. Like, let me look up the definition of axiom now, so I'm not messing it up. What does that actually mean? Statement of proposition which is regarded as being established, accepted, or self-evidently true. That's what he... It's true because it is. It's self-evidently true. That's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say axiom and not tautology. Okay. Splitting hairs here, but still, folks. Continuing.
illegitimate arguments, not to mention hilariously stupid. Only dumb people talk like that. Now everybody in power talks like that. Diversity is our strength. Trans women are women. Zelensky is Churchill.
What he's describing is literally how conservatives see the world. Through axioms, not tautologies. Axioms. Government is bad. God is real. God is great. Guns make you safer. These are all things which can either not be proven or can be easily disproven, which conservatives believe anyway. They're axioms. Right? Conservative axioms. I mean, that's what libertarianism is. Libertarianism is based on axioms that have little to no actual real truth in the real world. That's what conservative thought is based on. Especially when it comes to, like, you know, conservative political theory. Cutting taxes for rich people creates jobs. That's another one. Zero, no matter how many times we fucking do it, and it never actually creates any goddamn jobs. That's another one that they say is it's like he's just projecting. Like, I mean, it really is that everything conservatives bitch and moan and complain about is it's all projecting the shit that they actually do themselves. Continuing.
It's all self-evidently true. Doesn't need an explanation, and don't ask questions. Sound familiar? Of course it does. That's the pap they're serving us day after day in steaming, lumpy portions.
That's the pap that every conservative pundit and politician feeds to us day after day in steaming, lumpy portions. It's exactly their playbook. They're doing it now with the trans shit too. Trans, you know, they're recruiting our children, blah 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 blah. Where there's little to zero evidence of that at all. It's uncanny. The projection is so hard.
By this point, it's possible that American citizens are the least informed people in the world. Your average yak herder in Tajikistan knows who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
We have conservative media to thank for that, by the way. The reason why Americans are not informed, right, is because people like Tucker Carlson are the ones that are keeping people uninformed, right? I don't feel that I need to actually go look up stats on that. I feel that that point has been made and established multiple times by multiple people over the last 20 years that we can just make that an axiom. But it's an axiom which has actually been proven. The more that you are a consumer of conservative media, the less informed you are. It's like a bona fide scientific proof at this point. It's not even an axiom anymore. It's like literally been proven multiple times, multiple studies, multiple surveys. The more that you watch people like Tucker Carlson and Fox News and One American Network and other conservative networks, the more that you get your actual news from conservatives, the less you know, the less informed you are on the issues and what's going on in the goddamn world, because conservative media is not interested in actually telling you anything informative or true. It's just there to make you angry. That's all this entire thing we've been watching here. Has he informed anybody of anything? You know? I guess I did learn that there was a possible plot from the Ukrainians to blow up Nord Stream pipeline, which has not been proven. Look more like a conspiracy theory at this point. I guess I was informed about that. But really, what did we actually learn here? Through this entire thing that Carlson's been saying, what? Zelensky is sweaty and rat-like? Is that what we learned? His entire shtick is to make people angry. Not to inform you. Right? That's what's going on here, folks. Continuing. That's why conservative media makes you fucking stupid.
He thinks some skinny dude in a dress is actually a girl? Come on. That idea would never occur to him. You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been. The media lie. They do. But mostly they just ignore the stories that matter. What's happened to the hundreds of billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine? No clue. Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago?
We know exactly what happened to the hundreds of millions of dollars in money and equipment. Because it wasn't just money, it was actual equipment too. You know, tanks, planes, and shit like that. We know exactly what happened to all that money that goes to the Ukraine. It is being used in the war. The equipment is being used in the war. The money is being used for the war. We know exactly where it's going. Right? You know, it may surprise people like Tucker Carlson out there to realize this. But during a war, you keep shit like that secret. You know? You don't publish budgets and crap that say, oh, we spent this much money on this, and we got this much money and this much value and this kind of tank and that kind of... No, you don't do that, because that's valuable intelligence that you want to keep secret from your enemy. Right? So no, there's not going to be complete above-board accounting for all of the aid that the Ukraine is getting from the United States. No. It will be kept secret. We only get vague amounts. Oh, there's this much amount total. That. Oh, everything that you hear about in the news. Oh, we're going to be sending this many planes, this many tanks, whatever. That's information that they has already basically gotten into enemy hands. And so they've decided, like, okay, well, no reason to keep this secret because they're going to find that out, or they already know about it, or whatever. That's why you learn about it. We're not actually like, it's because it's a war. It's a war. You don't tell your enemy how many planes you're sending over to your ally in the middle of a goddamn war. You don't tell them how much money that you're sending them, how much budget they have, so that they can basically hire mercenaries, because that's what Ukraine is doing. Ukraine is hiring mercenaries in the middle of a damn war. Continuing on. Now, he was talking shit about BLM. I like how he's gone from, like, Ukraine to, like, sweaty rat-like Jewish, dog whistles to bagging on trans people. And now he's going to talk shit about BLM. Let's rewind that. I want to hear him talk shit about BLM. I like how he's linking all of this stuff together. It's
billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine. No clue. Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago? No one's gotten to the bottom of that. What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified.
9/11, Ukraine, and BLM. This is all JQ stuff here, folks. He's saying he's just asking questions about all of these things that are not linked. 9/11, BLM, 9/11, and Ukraine are not linked in any way at all. And he's basically implying, oh, who's behind all of this? You're not allowed to ask questions. Why? Because it's the sweaty rat-like cabal of globalists, quote unquote. The guy's a fucking Nazi. This is Nazi shit. We have been listening to Nazi propaganda here. Nazi propaganda. Straight up on Twitter. I mean, if there was any question before, it's pretty goddamn obvious now. Twitter is like Nazi propaganda. It's a fucking Nazi social media site. There's no reason to go to any of the alternatives anymore. Getter or Truth Social or fucking, what was the other one? What other stupid ass fucking things where all the actual like white supremacists had to go hide out after they all got banned from Twitter. There's no reason to go to any of those anymore. You can just go to Twitter now and get all of your white supremacist bullshit needs fucking satisfied. Because that's what this is. This is straight up Nazi shit.
How did Jeffrey Epstein make all that money? How did he die? How about JFK? And so endlessly on. Not only are the media not interested in any of this, they are actively hostile to anybody who is. In journalism, curiosity is the gravest crime. Yesterday, for example, a former Air Force officer who worked for years in military intelligence came forward as a whistleblower to reveal that the U.S. government has physical evidence of crashed non-human-made aircraft, as well as the bodies of the pilots who flew those aircraft.
Okay.
The Pentagon has spent decades studying these otherworldly remains in order to build more technologically advanced weapons systems. Okay, that's what the former intel officer revealed, and it was clear he was telling the truth.
So, planning on talking about this in the next coming days. The former intel officer, yes, a former intel officer did go on the news and claim this stuff. The former intel officer does not have any proof. Once again. So, this is not the first time this has happened. Every couple of years, this has happened lots of times in the past. A former government official, this XYZ, comes forward and claims that, oh, the government has UFOs, whatever. It's happened multiple times, right? No proof. Does the guy have any photos? No. Does the guy have any recordings, any videos? No. Can he tell us anything about where these things are? No. So, I'm sorry, but it's not actually proven just because a guy shows up and says, hey, I talked to a couple of people and this is what they told me, and that guy happens to have worked for the government. That doesn't mean shit. Jerome Corsi worked for the fucking government. The guy's like a tinfoil hat wearing crazy person. Bob Lazar worked for the government. There's actual proof that Bob Lazar actually did work at the places he said he worked. And he came 35 years ago claimed that there were UFOs there. Does he have any actual? I mean, there was actually like a phone like directory that showed his name and everything. It's like, oh, he actually did work there in Area 51 or whatever. Does he have any actual proof? Does he have any actual evidence? No. Sorry, doesn't count. Right? Just coming forward and saying, hey, I saw these things there, that's not good enough. Especially in this day, you want to impress me, right? Then you need to actually come forward with some actual evidence. And this particular whistleblower that Tucker Carlson is talking about says that the stuff is classified and he doesn't want to go to jail. If it's actually classified, then you just talking about it should be enough to throw you in jail. You notice that the dude has not been imprisoned yet. You're going to have to come up with more. I mean, here's the thing. If it was me, if I actually worked for the Air Force or something, if I was in the Air Force or whatever, and I actually came across photos of actual aliens, I wouldn't give a fuck if that shit was classified or not. I'd take it. Do you want people to know or not? You have to know what the consequences are. Consequences are you'll go to jail. Right? If you leak that shit, if you go and you put that on WikiLeaks or whatever, or you fucking upload it to Twitter or whatever, photos of the J-Rod, you know, they call that's one of the conspiracy theories. The alien is called the J-Rod or whatever. You know, we can get into that during a different stream, but, you know, long story short, that's one of the conspiracies out there. Right? Photos of the crashed bodies at Roswell or something like that. That's what it's going to take. You can't just come forward and then say, oh, I talked to a couple of people and they told me it was true. No. No. Not good enough. Because there are hundreds of people who have said that exact same damn thing. It's a good way to get a career started in the UFO circles out there. Because then they go on Coast and Coast AM. They write a bunch of books. They start doing media tours and shit like that. You know, the UFO like movement, it's an industry just like anything else. They have books, they have lectures, they write DVDs, all this other crap. So, no, you gotta have extraordinary claims, need extraordinary proof. Why the fuck is Tucker Carlson talking about UFOs, for fuck's sake? Like, this is like Alex Jones territory. It is. This is Alex Jones shit. Like, I mean, I know Tucker Carlson was always sort of on the fringes of that conspiracy theory stuff, but this is straight up conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat wearing fucking goofiness right here. Let's continue.
In other words, UFOs are actually real, and apparently so is extraterrestrial life. Now we know.
Now we don't know. No, we do not. That is not true. Just because a guy says it doesn't mean it's true. We need evidence. Now, I personally do believe, yes, that there are UFOs, and I actually would not be surprised if the government knows about it, right? In fact, I think that there's most likely, yes, something to the stories of the government covering up the evidence of UFOs. I think it's very, very likely that things have been covered up multiple times throughout the years. But just a guy going on TV and saying it's true, that's not good enough. You got to give us more, dude, right? I think he really just knows who his audience is. It's like I think he really is trying to cater to the fucking Alex Jones type series, trying to muscle in on Alex Jones's territory. Man, that's pathetic, isn't it? That's really pathetic. This guy went from fucking 3 million people a night to being, you know, there are people saying that, oh, he might run for president. Like, that's how, like, famous and, like, popular and influential Tucker Carlson went. Where he'd have, like, important people and guests on his show and stuff, and now he's talking about fucking aliens and JFK and trying to, like, basically... This is like bottom feeder Nazi shit. That's what this is. It's kind of sad. Wow. Continuing.
In a normal country, this news would qualify as a bombshell, the story of the millennium. But in our country, it doesn't. The whistleblower's account ran on a technology website called The Debrief, which you've probably never heard of. The Washington Post had that story, but decided not to run it. The New York Times, meanwhile, just pretended it never happened.
Because there's no evidence. That's why they didn't run these things. Now, if the guy would have showed up with a couple of pictures, or maybe a specimen of an alien fetus or something like that, some actual evidence, if he would have had some of that, then they would have ran it. But there is nothing special about just some dude who used to work for the government coming up with a wild-ass story. That's not news. It's not newsworthy at all. That's crank shit. Ridiculous crank shit. And they would be, if they ran that on the cover of the New York Times, if they ran that story, like, guy says that he knows aliens are real. How does he know? Somebody told him so. That's really what it amounts to. I'm planning on reviewing that video on Saturday, right? But that's pretty much what it amounts to. They would have been like, they'd be made a laughing stock. I mean, Tucker Carlson knows this. What kind of game is Tucker Carlson knows exactly all of this stuff. He's supposed to be a fucking journalist, isn't he? I mean, I know that he's not really a journalist. Obviously, Tucker Carlson is not a real journalist, but still, he's supposed to understand these things. It's like, I don't understand. Like, what the fuck is this guy getting at? He's dredging the bottom of the fucking fish barrel for, like, the conspirachuds here.
On the front page of the New York Times website this morning, there were 5 stories about Ukraine, as well as 4 stories apiece about Donald Trump, trans people, and climate change, the usual lineup. There was nothing at all about how an alien species is flying hypersonic aircraft over our cities. Not one word.
Because there's no proof of an alien species flying hypersonic aircraft over our country. There's no proof of that. That's why it wasn't on the cover. There's plenty of proof of Donald Trump breaking the law. That's why they report on it. Trans story was probably most likely about conservatives taking away trans rights, so that's why that shit was there. And Ukraine is a goddamn war. And the climate change was on the cover because climate change is actually important. It's shit that's actually really happening and going to kill all of us and has the potential to destroy society. So that's actually important. The alien shit is not important. I mean, am I wrong here, folks? Wow, that's a good frame, isn't it? I think I might use that for the marquee for this episode. In fact, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to take a screenshot. Let's do sniping tool. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab that and use that in the YouTube, thumbnail. Let's continue on.
So if you're wondering why our country seems so dysfunctional, this is a big part of the reason. Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens.
Did you guys catch that? Did you guys catch what he just did? We don't know what's going on. We're allowed to yap about racism, but not things that really matter. I.e., racism doesn't really matter. See? That's like, remember, his speechwriter is a bona fide Nazi. That's what this was leading up to, folks. Oh, racism doesn't matter. They got you caring about the wrong things. Oh, you should be caring about a war that's half a world away. You know, that we're on the wrong side of a war. We should be supporting the guy that started the war. You should care about that. Oh, you should care about JFK. Oh, you should care about aliens. But you shouldn't care about how people in our country, how we have systemic, ingrained institutional racism, which directly benefits a particular race and a particular class in this country. Oh, you shouldn't care about that stuff. No, that doesn't really matter. You shouldn't change this thing that directly benefits me personally. You shouldn't care about how we're oppressing people based on skin color or sexual orientation. No, ignore all of that. Ignore all this stuff, right? Ignore how we're passing laws that basically are outlawing people based on their sexual orientation, based on their gender expression. Ignore all that stuff. Ignore how we're using all of this to undo the Civil Rights Act, to destroy education in this country, to indoctrinate children into our religion, and using state money to do so. Ignore all that. You should instead care about aliens. You know, folks, nobody out there wants there to be aliens more than me. I am kind of very, very well read when it comes to paranormal and UFO literature. I've read all the books, I know all the case studies, Barney Betty Hill, Antonio V.S. Boyas, The Face on Mars. I've read all of that shit. I know all about this stuff. Mothmen, Men in Black, Bigfoot sightings. You know, shadow people, the works. It's kind of a hobby of mine. I also know that there's no real proof for any of this stuff. There's photographs and this and that. There's some videos. There's things that are intriguing. But it's not news. It's not real news, right? You know what would be real news? A guy showing up with, like, some actual tissue from an alien body. That would be news. So that it's giving that to scientists, DNA, so they can DNA test it. That would be news. A guy showing up with an actual alien artifact. Hey, this is a piece that came off of a UFO that we found. Check it out. Guy showing up with some photos. Here's some photos. Here are the negatives, whatever. Have these be tested to see if they're fake. They're not fake. Guy showing up with some video. Some old film. Here's some film of a crashed UFO from the 1940s or something like that. Here's an actual video of a interview with with an alien or whatever done by the CIA, something like that. You know what that is? Like evidence, proof. That would be newsworthy. Some dude going on the news and just talking a bunch of shit and not giving any proof. That happens all the goddamn time. And especially when it comes to UFOs and shit, there's dozens and dozens of quote-unquote government leakers, government whistleblowers when it comes to the UFOs. Hundreds and hundreds of these fucking guys going around writing books, doing the circuit, talking about things like Stargates and crap like that. Give me some actual real proof, please. It's really blowing me away. This is really blowing me away. The fact that he's trying to use fucking UFOs as like a distraction here. And then saying that we should not care about it. Racism doesn't matter. UFOs matter more than racism. It can't be any more fucking blatant. It's like this is deranged conspiracy Nazi crap. Alright, it's almost over. We have literally 3 minutes. Let's continue. I'm going to let it go for like a minute before I comment next. Let's go.
Keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us. That's how they maintain control. When Western tourists first started traveling in large numbers to the Soviet Union in the early 1970s, they found that many Russians had a completely warped understanding of the United States. They thought that Americans lived in grinding poverty, in a state of perpetual race war, and were desperate to flee to the freedom and prosperity of the Eastern Bloc. They thought this because that's what they had been told. They had no way to know otherwise. The few Russians who understood what was really going on in the rest of the world had learned about it from listening to shortwave radio broadcasts, sometimes under the covers so the neighbors wouldn't hear. 50 years later, it is bewildering to consider the ironies here. We're the ones who live in ignorance now. The US government has managed to classify more than 1 billion so-called public documents. So at this point, we can't possibly know what our leaders are doing. We're not allowed to know. By definition, that is not a democracy.
All right. First off, that does not have anything to do with actual democracy. We are a democracy. Yes, there are many things which are classified. And you know what? I think I can agree a little bit that some things that are classified should not be classified. I can definitely agree with that. But that doesn't mean that we don't know what's going on in the country. We do know what's going on in the country, mostly. I mean, I guess I could agree. I can agree that the security state is far too prevalent in this country. And that's definitely true. So, okay, I have to give that one to Tucker Carlson. It is true that we do live in basically this security, national security state. It has far too much fucking power in this country. That's definitely true. But that doesn't mean we don't know what's going on in the country. We know exactly what's going on in the country. Congress, all that shit is pretty much open. We know what gets voted on. We know what laws get passed. Yes, there's lots of like hidden clandestine shit that our government does. But you know something? Every government does that. Every government keeps secrets from its people and from other governments, from its neighbors, from its enemies, right? Because, this may surprise some of you guys out there too, but the United States has enemies. There are other governments and other actors out there that want to do us harm. And there are things that we need to keep secret from them. One of those enemies is Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is an enemy of the United States. He wants to do us harm. Vladimir Putin's goal is basically to have the United States destabilized. And he wants the same thing that happened to Russia in the 90s to happen to the United States. Russia, basically, the Soviet Union collapsed and wasn't a country anymore. It had to reform into a different country, and it took years. It hasn't even recovered to the same level of strength that it was at pre-collapse. Putin's long-term goal is to rebuild that hegemony, Russian hegemony. The United States is a main competitor to that, and that's what his ultimate goal is that he wants to destabilize the United States. This is why Vladimir Putin does things like support radical right-wing movements in this country. This is why they do things like they amplify things like QAnon. And they have like Russian troll farms that go out and spread racist hate. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's true. We know that they do that. They do it to this day. They did it a lot during 2014, 2015, the election, 2016 election. They do it to this day. They're out there, Russian troll farms, spreading hate and conspiracy theories. Where do you think all this conspiracy theory shit comes from? It's because it destabilizes the country. They're very much interested in doing that. So, that's, yeah. There's a reason why this stuff is kept secret, right? Maybe we shouldn't keep all of it secret all the time. Maybe we should be a little more open. I would like for example, I would like the government to reveal what it knows about UFOs. I do personally think that's actually true. I think that they do have information that they're not sharing with people. I would like that to happen. But that doesn't mean that we don't know what's going on in the country. That's fucking ridiculous. Moving on. Almost finished, folks. One more minute.
Yet it's fine with the media. Secrecy is a powerful tool of control. Stop asking how we got so rich. Here's another story about racism. Go eat each other. That's the program. That's how most of us now live here in the United States. Manipulated by lies, silenced by taboos. It is unhealthy and it's dehumanizing, and we're tired of it. As of today, we've come to Twitter, which we hope will be the shortwave radio under the blankets. We're told there are no gatekeepers here. If that turns out to be false, we'll leave. But in the meantime, we are grateful to be here. We'll be back with much more very soon.
All right. I really liked that one little bit that he threw in there. Did you get that? How did you get so rich? Right? This little line right here. Let's go back to right here. How did you get so rich?
Definition, that is not a democracy. Yet it's fine with the media. Secrecy is a powerful tool of control. Stop asking how we got so rich. Here's another story about racism. Go eat each other.
That right there. Another little bit there. Here's a story about racism. See, this whole thing has just been him basically and trying to convince people about how unimportant racism actually is. That's what he's trying to do here. It's like, oh, here's the real enemy. So ignore us. Concentrate on these other people. That's one thing that's a theme through this entire video that he repeated several times. Here's another story about racism. Pay attention to that. Here's, trying to say racism is unimportant. Here's the important stuff. Stop, but what's he actually saying there, folks? Right? Stop blaming us. Stop holding us accountable for shit that we're doing. Right? Stop getting mad at us when we're racist. Instead, care about other shit like like the war. Let's turn this motherfucker off, right? But that's basically his entire... Okay, so he is basically... Tucker Carlson's first show is just straight up tinfoil hat Nazi bullshit. That's all. That's his entire first show there, folks. Looking back, we just watched it over the last 2 hours. His entire first show is just him telling people that they should care about other stuff besides racism. Started off with a very good dose of anti-Semitism, calling Zelensky rat-like and sweaty. That was funny. A big healthy dose of Putin ball licking, and ending off with some good old-fashioned tinfoil hat nuttery. I don't know. You know something? I think maybe I might become a loyal watcher of Tucker Carlson here. Because it's mask off now. I mean, he was pretty ballsy when he was on Fox. But there was a lot less of the dog whistles here and just some straight out whistles. That's something that I'm noticing here, right? I don't think he ever would have called Zelensky sweaty and rat-like, for example. I don't think he ever would have said racism is unimportant. Like he just did there. Several times. I think that's even a step too far for even Fox. I guess he's letting his Nazi freak flag fly here on Twitter. I guess he feels safe knowing that this is his network now, that Elon Musk is not going to censor him so he can say all the racist shit he wants. I mean, I always kind of knew that, he definitely gave the impression of being someone who was definitely racist. But I didn't think that he was a straight out fucking Nazi. I mean, he always had that great replacement shit or whatever, but he always sort of said it in such a way as that it gave him plausible deniability. He's like, oh, I'm really just a normal conservative, and this is the thing I'm concerned about, is that there's not enough white babies, blah, 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 right? I think we can definitely say without a doubt now that Carlson himself believes this shit. Right, because that was the other theory. The other theory was like, oh, maybe his speechwriter, not speechwriter, but his writer, that guy that's writing the actual segments, maybe he's sneaking the stuff in there and Carlson doesn't know. Right. I think we can say without a doubt now that Carlson knows. Carlson is on board with it, because he wouldn't have said the shit that he said tonight if he wasn't actually on board with the message. So I think this is, if this is a sign of things to come, we're going to see lots and lots more very, very bad stuff. I guess the good thing about this, the good takeaway, is that his audience has been cut by like a fifth, like down to 1/5 of what it was. 5 million viewers to 800,000. That's good. that's good deplatforming there. So maybe that means it'll mitigate some of the harm that he can actually do spreading this shit, I don't know, folks. It's late. Fuck Tucker Carlson. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you have or not, please like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and like me on Twitter. Join my Patreon, all that other bullshit. And I will see you guys Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Adios. Hello, folks. If you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.